You're listening to the Fitzrock Podcast, interviews where we explore the shifts and transitions of life. Here are your hosts, Keith Rock and Don Fitzsimmons.
All right. Thank you very much for being here, Fitzrock Podcast listeners. Today, we're so excited. We have Katherine Blackney to visit with us today about a three-legged approach to intimacy. Welcome to the podcast, Katherine.
Thank you. It's such a privilege and an honor to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this knowledge and information and to create really healthy relationships.
Well, very excited to have you. You have a three-legged approach to intimacy, and let's get right into that.
Great. So I want to give a little bit of a background. I'm a psychologist and I have a master's in marriage and family therapy, and I'm a clinical sex therapist. So what I get the privilege of doing is meeting with patients every week and exploring all different types of presenting concerns and looking at ways that we can enhance and really educate and encourage and enrich them to be the best versions of themselves, but also the best versions of their relationships that they're in. So it is such a privilege to come alongside my patients and be on that journey with them. So thanks for taking this journey today and allowing me to come alongside y'all as the listeners to, again, get to the place where you get to feel encouraged and enriched with knowledge and educated and enhanced to be the best versions of yourselves and in relationships. So I've been practicing for over 20 years. And again, I love what I do. And throughout my experiences as a marriage and family therapist, my experiences as a psychologist and a clinical sex therapist, I've come up with this theory of the three-legged stool as it relates to relationships. And how do we enhance intimacy? A lot of times people think, well, when we start off with intimacy, it has to be physical intimacy. And you start off right from the gate in that perspective and in that vein. And I like to back up a little bit and say, all right, let's kind of start going into the shallow end and then we'll get into the deep end. So the three-legged stool looks at the definition of intimacy in a more in-depth level. You have emotional intimacy, you have spiritual intimacy, and you have physical intimacy. So I want to just spend a little bit of time giving y'all some tidbits in all of those three areas as a way to enhance your partnerships, your relationships that you're in right now. A little caveat too is I want each of y'all as the listeners to feel seen and known and loved by me. I try to be very politically correct to allow everyone to feel accepted and received. So just please know that that's my heart. And I want you to hopefully get that feeling from our time today talking. So let's look at what is emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy is really connecting on an in-depth emotional level, right? It's on the feeling level. It's on the heart level, really connecting with your partner on a heart level. And it is having the ability to feel seen, known, and loved by your partner. It's engaging in communication and active listening skills. It looks like how do we dream about the future together, which really extends the relationship. It starts really in the dating phase of getting to know each other and asking questions and being in that fact-finding stage of a relationship where there's lots of dopamine hits because our brains are getting excited and we're just having fun and getting to know each other and everything's new. And so you're expressing like what you like and what you don't like and spending time together. So a way to enhance emotional intimacy, because there's sometimes where if we have children in the home, we don't have as much access to this emotional intimacy, or that gets on the back burner. So what are some ways that we can maybe bring some of that into our lives right now to enhance our relationships? So I'm going to give you kind of some tidbits of action points that you can take home with you today and implement in terms of increasing that emotional intimacy. One way of increasing emotional intimacy is to have connection on a daily basis. So 15 minutes a day connect with your partner as either husband and wife, or as partners, or as girlfriend and boyfriend. Just kind of connect and say, hey, what was your high of the day? What was your low of the day? Just kind of, I want to know the highlights. So connecting 15 minutes a day. And then I want y'all to connect one night or day a week. And this is where we have kind of like a date night. So it's a time that's set apart that allows for that communication and active listening to really blossom, and just to spend time together. If you do find yourself in the role of mother and father, this date night, you get to slip back into the role as husband and wife or as partners. So you kind of leave your role as parents home, and you get to kind of tap into who y'all were before those roles came in. You even kind of leave your employee-employer role at home too, so that you can truly just connect as partners and husbands and wives. And you could have a date night at night, during the day, just whenever you can create that space. It's so important just to have that grounding experience to kind of remember, this is where it all began. Just you and I. Okay. And then I would love for y'all to have one weekend a quarter where you go away, you slip away from the duties of household chores and dogs that need to be taken care of and all of your responsibilities. Have a weekend where you just slip off, again, to engage in that role as partners or husbands and wives or girlfriends and boyfriends. And then I want a week. All right. So a week is in the same vein of really just slipping away from the daily duties and connect. So the formula for that intimacy is going to be 15 minutes a day, and it's going to be one night or day a week, and then one weekend a quarter, and 1 week a year. What do you think about that?
I love it. It sounds awesome. Not easy to do all the time.
It is not easy. It takes a lot of discipline. Absolutely. A lot of discipline and proactive looking ahead at your schedules. And when we do that, we show that we're pursuing our partners. And that's really important, to feel pursued and to have the ability to pursue them. And that's increasing emotional intimacy right there.
And do you find that that's easy for families, especially with children?
It is more challenging with younger kids in the home to find a babysitter. It's financially draining at times to think, oh gosh, I have to find a babysitter, and then we're going out to eat once a week. And that can be really draining on the finances. So I say, be creative. So maybe twice a month, you get a babysitter to take on the children roles, getting them fed, bathed, putting them to bed. So you're not burdened with that. And you get to skip out of the house. And then on the other weeks, after you've put the kids to bed, maybe you put them to bed a little earlier than normal, then go eat dinner in a different room in the house. Make it unique and set apart. So it's unlike every other night that you sit at the dining room table and you have conversations and you talk with the family. Go sit out on the porch. Go sit out on the front driveway. Get a blanket into, your front yard. Go eat in the den without the TV on, because this is quality time where you can really hear your partner talking and you get to communicate with quality time. So it does take a little bit of creativity and proactiveness. I also find that my empty nesters, they have just as hard of a time to create this set apart date night, because to them, every night's a date night with us. We can go out to dinner anytime we want. We have no schedules to operate around. But what I find is that my older couples have become very complacent with, we kind of, after we eat dinner, I get on the couch and get on my phone and go through my social media, and he gets on his chair and he watches sports, or he watches whatever on the TV, and there's no connection. So to me, that's not a date night. So I encourage all stages to have that set apart time where there is active listening and communication to one another that's building that intimacy. Dream about where you want to be in 5 years as a couple, as an individual. Have time to just expand on the wins that are going on in your life. What wins have you really had? How can y'all support each other and celebrate? And again, just connect on that emotional level. So it's really important to have that be the foundation of being friends with your partner and your spouse and liking them, right? So
Yes.
yeah.
Is one of the biggest challenges I would see is like people and phones.
Absolutely. So sometimes I'm not direct in my therapy, right? Therapy, I don't tell my clients what to do. I gently lead them to water and then they can figure out what to do, right? So at times though, I do kind of intervene on behalf of either partner to say, wouldn't it be a great idea if on our date nights, we leave our phones in the car? Or on our date nights, we put our phones in the back bedroom charging, and we really just have that 1 to 2 hours where we're connecting. Phones can be a distraction for sure. They take our minds to different places. We become overstimulated with phones, very distracted, and we're just not present. And so part of being emotionally intimate with each other is giving the gift of presence, being present, being grounded, so that you really do feel seen, known, and loved.
Love it. Thank you.
Another thing that I encourage when I'm being a little bit more directive in this emotional intimacy vein is on your date nights, I'd love for you to ask your partner these 2 questions. One is, how have you felt loved by me this week? And the second is, how can I love you differently or more? We have performance reviews at the office. We have other kind of touching base if we're working with a personal trainer or if we're getting voice lessons. We have these benchmarks that let us know how we're doing. But sometimes we don't have that in our own marriages. So we're not kind of connecting with like, hey, how am I doing? How are you doing? How are we doing? Let's have this performance review. So when we ask each other the question, how have you felt loved by me this week? It allows your partner to share, oh man, when you did this, I felt so loved. I felt so seen. And to really encourage that action or the words that you shared, whatever was connecting to that person, it allows you to want to do more of that, right? And then the second question is, how can I love you differently or more? It really gets to constructive criticism in a very safe environment. This is not for any arguments or conflict to arise. It really is, I'm in this safe place right now with you. How can I love you more? Because I'm putting forth the effort and I want to win. I don't want to put forth the effort and we're like 2 ships passing in the night. I want to win. And so we're able to say, gosh, well, when you empty that dishwasher on Monday, it was just like I tell my husband the dishwasher fairy came today because when I go to empty my dishes and I'm like, oh, they're all, and I have 5 children. They span, they're 10, 8, 6, 4.5, and 4. So we are just right there in the thick of it. We've been married for 12 years. And when I go to that dishwasher and I'm like, oh, I'll send him a little text and say the dishwasher fairy came today, just as an appreciation. So that might be kind of, for me to say, man, how you can love me differently or more, just keep on emptying the dishwasher. That really is helpful. So that can be another way of helping give some tactile points for the couple to ask to be able to enhance their emotional intimacy. So,
love it.
Okay, let's talk about spiritual intimacy. And so spiritual intimacy is really connecting on an in-depth spiritual level through whatever fits your lifestyle, your personality, and your expression of faith. Being in the South, there are a lot of opportunities to work with people of all walks of agnostic, atheist, Baptist, Catholic, Episcopal, Buddhist, you name it. And so the idea of this leg, the second leg of the stool, if you will, the idea of a spiritual intimacy, it is, you don't really even have to be a religious person, but we all have something existentially that we believe keeps us intimately connected to ourselves, to our partners, and even to the universe. And so I just encourage my couples to spend some time exploring, what would it look like to have spiritual intimacy together? What would it look like to have spiritual intimacy individually? Because there is this component of being others focused that allows the gift of us to love our partners and our spouses. So, and I let my couples dictate what that looks like to them. Every couple is different, and that is truly a path I ask them to meditate and just ponder on and emerge with what works for them. So then we get to physical intimacy. And you don't have to have spiritual intimacy and emotional intimacy to have physical intimacy. It's all balanced, right? You have the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical. And if we put too much in the physical category, the stool is going to topple over. So we have to have a really well balanced, amount in each of these categories. When we get to the physical, if we do have emotional and if we do have spiritual, it allows the physical to be expanded and have like a three-dimensional model. It's even that much more enhanced when we have the foundation of, I like you, and we have fun together. And there are days where we need to think beyond ourselves and not be so self-focused and tit for tat and argue about nitpick things. And then we get to the physical intimacy, we're able to really have that be a three-dimensional whole leg of the stool, if that makes sense. So physical intimacy is really connecting on the most intimate, vulnerable level possible through physical touch. And there's a continuum of behaviors. What I have found is the older generation and moving down, we've lost the ability to flirt. What happens is when you're in your relationship, let's say you have children or not, the flirtatiousness that was once there at the beginning of this new relationship, where oxytocin is the bonding hormone, that's flowing because it's a new experience, it's a new relationship. Vasopressin, which is the stay-at-home monogamy hormone that is expressed in men, that's flowing at this new stage of a physical relationship. Well, we can't sustain at that level, right? We'd never leave the house. We would be overpopulating the world. So at times that the vasopressin and oxytocin level is going to dissipate and not have that much of a strong reaction. And so we find that we're not as touchy-feely, or we're not engaging in that flirtatiousness that we once were. And we really get to a place of we either have sex or we don't. It's, one partner may pursue the other by just kind of doing a little peck on the neck or grabbing a little booty here or there. And the other partner feels uncomfortable because they're like, well, I'm in the middle of doing something, so I can't go to the bedroom and finish. I have to finish what I'm doing. So I can't really engage in that playfulness and that flirtatiousness back because I need to finish what I'm doing. So therefore we shut down that ability to flirt and have fun. So there is a continuum of physical intimacy that I really hope to expand with y'all today listening, with my patients that I work with. So you have anywhere from hand holding to kissing, sitting next to each other on the couch, snuggling, taking a shower together, to obviously the more sexually intimate experiences through affection and arousal and through erotic orgasmic lovemaking. So I like to expand that continuum. I think that's really important. We have lots of cookies in our cookie jar, not just one or the other, right? And so some character traits that I want to empower you as the listener to take away from today and implement is I want you to be playful, especially when it comes to physical intimacy. Don't take yourself so seriously. I want you to be playful and have fun. I want you to be curious about bodies, about your own body, learn what you like. One of the main jobs of my career as a clinical sex therapist is to provide psychoeducation and to encourage couples to begin the dialogue. Sex and physical intimacy can be very awkward. It can be overwhelming. Where do we even begin? I feel kind of pervy if I talk about it. It just is so hard. Like, where do we even enter into this dialogue? So my job is to create a safe space to create that path to allow couples to communicate about what they like, what they don't like, be curious, be generous when we're together physically, be honest, be open to new ideas. These are all character traits that you can embody today as you go forth to have a fuller, more enriched physical intimacy with your partner. I encourage having physical, non-sexual touch days, and then having days where we're going to be sexual. Again, when we have lost that expression of flirtatiousness, we need to reclaim that. And I want there to be days where you're physically touching each other, but it's not for a sexual purpose. It's just for that connection. It's to minimize the awkwardness that maybe if we go a couple of weeks without really being intimate, then it becomes kind of awkward. So how can we continue to engage in physical non-sexual touch on a daily basis, and then also create time to have more physical intimacy in a sexual way? And that allows the physical intimacy to stay alive and to have that spark stay alive. So those are some of the touch points, action points of really embracing the qualities of a great lover. It's to be disciplined to create opportunities for physical intimacy and to be really good at flirting.
What do you do when you run across somebody that they say that there's, they don't have any connection at all with their spouse, and that hasn't been there for a while? Where do you take them? Do they have hope?
My husband, and I love this, it helps ground me. My husband says, remember, people are not as excited to see you as you are to see them. So I love what I do. And I get giddy when I'm meeting new patients, but I also am grounded in knowing this is not coffee talk. They're coming because there's a pain. They're coming because there's a lack. They're coming because there is something that they want more or different. And so I am a very hopeful, optimistic person. Part of my PhD is in counseling psychology, and it's a positive psychology where I believe you have what it takes to become enriched and become enhanced, to be the best version of you. I've just got to come alongside you and kind of draw it out. So it's not anything that I'm doing specifically. I don't have the magic wand. The magic of therapy happens in between sessions, right? But through that interpersonal relationship, I am able to connect with them and walk this journey together. So I try to exhibit hope, even when the couple maybe has lost hope, to say, I'm going to step in that gap for you. I'm going to hope for all of us in the room. And I'm going to be able to step in that gap right now where y'all aren't able to. Okay. That doesn't insinuate that, yes, you're going to get better. It's just for right now, we're going to hold that loosely. And I'm going to step in that gap and hope for all of us. And then generally, I got to zoom way back out and I got to say, okay, tell me about attachments. Tell me about your emotional intimacy. Tell me when y'all first met. Tell me about y'all's, your dating career, right? You're dating each other. I want to go back to the fondness that was there. And then tell me about your spiritual intimacy. And then let's get to the physical. So it generally takes a couple of sessions to then speak about desire. So much of men, when they are physically intimate, their hearts are open to be emotionally available for their partners. For women, when they are emotionally intimate, their hearts are open to be physically available. So for a woman, desire is defined differently than for a man. And so I, again, educate them. And then I ask them, what is your definition of desire? What does it mean to not have desire for your spouse? I also have the freedom of exploring if there's any genitopelvic pain going on during intercourse for my women. And I work with pelvic floor physical therapists who are able to provide physical therapy for the woman to create new neural pathways to diminish that pain in the vulva vagina area. I'm able to work with urologists and gynecologists that will look at testosterone, estrogen, progesterone levels to see, do we need to do anything medically that might need some hormone replacement therapy if we're running low on testosterone? So it's a myriad of things. When they say I have no desire or I've lost desire, I try to go to, when did that happen? And let's exhaust everything. And what's great about being a clinical sex therapist is I'm able to work as a team with some amazing people who were all working together to create the best versions of these patients of ours to be, and the best versions of their relationships. So we're all kind of advocating for the patient, and it's just a really neat time when we can all come together and do that.
I love that. And Don's having internet issues, like I said, but he said, do you help people understand how to disagree with each other?
So in the emotional intimacy, we talk about healthy steps to conflict resolution. I believe that we have the ability to have healthy conflict. We have the ability to be two very individual people who have individual passions that they get very passionate or heated or overexpressive about, and helping them navigate that. One model I use, Sherrod Miller in the 80s created this communication model, and it's wonderful. It's called the awareness wheel. And basically, I'm going to give you the Cliff Note version. The sentence structure is, when I see or hear blank, I think blank and I feel blank. So in order to understand what is causing that person to feel very upset, or why are they angry with me, or what's going on for me, is to become more mature in your communication. Communication is one of the leading causes of divorce. So we've got to spend a lot of time in that emotional intimacy, in those sessions where we highlight emotional intimacy, learning this model of communication and active listening. So if a client were to say, when I heard you slam the door louder than normal, I think you're angry with me and I feel curious and worried. What have I done? Okay. That's a really healthy, I'm connecting with my head and my heart and my gut, right? So I'm becoming self-actualized to really understand this is what's going on for me when I hear the door shut louder. Because when I was little, my parents would fight. And anytime a door would slam, somebody was in trouble. It meant somebody hated the other person. So we bring our own experiences into the way we interpret events. And to be able to share that with your partner, it helps dispel some of that conflict to say, oh, okay, I hear you, because you're speaking from the I stance. When I see, I think, I feel. And nobody can challenge you on that. That is your experience. It's how you think and how you feel. And so it allows you to be more vulnerable instead of like, well, there you go, slamming the door again. I'm sure it's something I did, right? Gosh, we are guarded. I'm prickly at that point. I don't want to go towards that person, right? But when we let that guard down and risk vulnerability for the sake of connection and use that awareness wheel statement, then we have the opportunity to dispel that conflict and to have a real connecting repair moment. So absolutely, there is an art to learning when to take a time out. When you're so emotionally dysregulated and you're flooded and all you can see is red and you know what's going to come out of your mouth is going to be beyond damaging, you need to be able to say, I'm taking a time out. And what a lot of couples don't do is they don't take a time in, which doesn't build trust that actually you care about me and you care about the repair. So it's very important to say, hey, I need a time out in an hour. Can we take a time in? And then during the time in, we can use that when I see, I think, I feel, as a way to say, this was what was going on for me. I got really triggered and I felt really passionate about this and I need to talk to you about it.
I love that. And I really like the terminology triggered. Like for me, something could be like, it brought me back to the there and then of when I was a little child or whatever. It's much better than saying you're really pissy or you're just an ass, instead of trying to identify really what's going on inside me. Like, just then that's hurtful to the other person and nothing gets resolved.
Right. And the sweetest part of a rift is the repair. When we get to spend time, and this is in our parenting, in our partnerships, when we have the ability to make a repair, that is far more powerful in our brains than the rift was. And we're building trust and we're building safety, that you're a safe person that I can be vulnerable with, that can have conflict, that I can have conflict with and not risk rejection or abandonment.
Part of that also is identifying, if you have the emotional capacity to identify what you think you're hearing from somebody. Like I've talked to somebody and they like become very upset, and so the other people can take it as real negativity or hurtful, when really, if they could listen, and sounds like you're feeling like you're not cared about, or you're feeling lonely, or there's something that's coming from. It's not just that there's something that's about.
Sure. And being curious.
Yes.
It's really important to have that stance of curiosity versus assuming, because we know what assuming is. It makes an ass of you and me. So we've got to really have a state of curiosity. So an example would be when I noticed that you flipped me the bird and walked out of the room, I think something I said upset you, and I feel curious what's going on. That's a very grounded, regulated statement that sometimes it takes a lot of skill to get to that place versus, oh, you're going to throw me the bird? Oh, I'm going to, and that's where it gets to be, we're connecting on a head level and we're just fighting, tit for tat, fighting to be right. But when we drop into that heart and that gut level, I noticed you gave me the bird and you walked out of the room. So I'm interpreting you're upset. And it could be you're upset with me, you're upset with something I said, and I feel hurt, I feel lonely, I feel exposed, I feel distant, and I feel unseen. Okay, wow. I mean, did we just kind of drop down to that heart level to be like, okay. And again, the way we interpret an event is in that cognition piece, I think blank. That helps me know my partner far better. I spent some time in Kenya. I worked at a school at an AIDS hospice orphanage, and I loved my time there. It was so special. And there was one time where I was in the States and I was going to a conference in Orlando, and I was sitting on the shuttle bus taking me to my rental car. And I looked over and there's this African-American woman, and she was wearing a bracelet that said Kenya on it and had the Kenyan flag colors. And I use this example to say, when I saw this woman sitting next to me with the Kenyan flag bracelet, I thought, maybe she's from Kenya. I wonder what tribe she's in. I wonder if she speaks Kiswahili. And I felt nostalgic and tearful, longing for that time I had in Kenya. Okay. You're going to sit on that bus and probably not even notice that there's a girl in the bus. You're going to sit there and maybe say, oh, that's kind of a cool bracelet. I think those are the colors of Kenya. Maybe not, But didn't you just learn something about me?
Yes. Yes.
Just by...
You're curious.
Yeah. Just by explaining, this is what I was thinking when I saw that experience. A lot of times we say, when I see you slam the door, I feel like you're angry with me. And what have I done now? We don't explain, I think you're upset with me based on my experience of slamming doors when I was a little girl. So a lot of times we skip over that expression that helps us know our partners even better and more in depth.
There's another question here is, how does one manage the strong emotions to get to the place you're talking about?
When we experience strong emotion, listen to it. That's your body's reaction. That is your gut reaction to, whoo, something is worth exploring. There's nothing wrong with strong emotion. That is we were created to have emotion. What we do with that emotion, that is where we need to really watch. That is where we can create damage and conflict beyond repair. So when you're feeling that strong emotion, it's to have the discipline enough to either walk away, engage in thought-stopping behaviors or healthy coping skills to help you regulate. What's happening is you're becoming flooded and becoming dysregulated. So an example would be, let's say my 4-year-old is having a tantrum. If I want to go over there and talk rational speak to her, if she's throwing a tantrum about wanting to wear purple tights to school and I would like for her to wear normal tights or, these white tights I have for her, and she's just having a fit. If I go over there and say, hey, listen, and I start trying to talk rationally, what's happened in her brain is the amygdala has become so flooded with emotion. It is like talking to a drunk person. You cannot speak ration because the brain doesn't have the ability to hear and to think. So what we do is we say, we just need some calm down time. I just want you, you're not in timeout, you're not in trouble, but you need to calm down. You need to regulate. You're so dysregulated that you're not present with me and you're not able to hear me. So I need you to go and just have some calm down time. And I think us as adults need our calm down time. Go take a walk around the block, right? Go pop on your headphones and listen to some music, do some breathing, kind of get grounded and get centered, and then come back to the conversation with, hey, I had such a strong reaction and strong emotion, and I needed to listen to that, because a lot of times when we feel anger, it's really passion. We're obviously passionate about something. If somebody has betrayed us, if somebody has lied to us, if something political has gone on and we are angry, it's because we are passionate for justice. We're passionate for honesty, or we're passionate for authenticity. And so we got to listen to what's underneath that anger that is such a strong emotion. Anger is also defined as a blocked goal. What goal are you not able to obtain? Also underneath anger, there are several primary emotions. Anger is kind of the expression. It's a secondary, but it's not the primary. And I try to get my patients to the place to express what is their primary emotion, because when you express your primary emotion, then I can meet you there. Primary emotions under anger are sadness, loneliness, embarrassment, guilt, abandonment, rejection. Those are what we feel when we're feeling angry, when we're feeling passionate. And so a lot of what is needed is becoming more emotionally aware of, what am I feeling? So sometimes I encourage my patients once a day to stop anytime during the day and fill out, I feel blank because blank. I just want them to kind of drop into their bodies, drop into their heart, and begin to becoming more emotionally aware. Because from that, then you can actually express what your emotions are, and then you can express what your needs are and get those needs met.
I love that. I love everything you've talked about tonight. You're obviously very skilled at what you do. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
No, I do love what I do. And my desire is to reach more than one person an hour. So it is such a gift to be a guest on your podcast, to know that if one person hears this and makes a shift and becomes more playful in their physical intimacy, or becomes more disciplined in their are playful in their physical intimacy and more disciplined in their emotional intimacy, then that for me is success. So it has just been a joy to be able to provide education to, again, become the best versions of yourselves, therefore the best versions in your relationships. So thank you.
Well, Katherine, real quick, I'm sure there's going to be some people curious about how to get a hold of you. Can you delineate a couple ways they can get a hold of you?
Sure. So my email address is Katherine, Katherine, at katherineblackney.com. My website is katherineblackney.com. And I'm also on Instagram, and it is Katherine Blackney, PhD. And I would love to have more followers on my Instagram. I am trying to build that social media presence to give out some psychoeducation as it relates to little tidbits as a clinical sex therapist, but also a psychologist, and be looking out for a book. I am in the end stages of completing my book called What Goes Where: How to Talk to Your Kids About Sex and Other Unmentionable Topics. So be looking out for that book. I'm super excited to, again, it's just another avenue to get all this information out so that we can create sexually whole beings with our children. And so those are the areas that you can find me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fitz Rock Podcast. The music you are hearing is Swim with Wild Musical Instruments by Your My Muse. Copyright 2019 and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial License. Until next time, have a fantastic life.